Why is the media attacking Justin Bieber? In 1981, Michael Jackson was on the rise as a solo artist, having freshly released his first studio album, Off the Wall. That's the album with the song where Michael Jackson was speaking Setswana. I swear! So as I was saying, Michael was working on his magnum opus. He wanted to be the most recognized and most well-known artist to ever live. His album, Thriller, was in the works, and he was accepting inspiration from all angles, including hanging out with former superstars. One artist who really took a liking into Michael was a man called Paul McCartney. He's part of this little-known group called the Beatles? I don't know. He invited Michael to his home and they worked on music together. During their lifetime, Paul came downstairs and showed Michael something that would change his life forever. I would say for the better, but in retrospect, it was probably for the worst. Paul showed him the publishing rights to the Beatles' music catalog and how they were used. Michael said that he would one day own the rights to the Beatles. And what do you know? 4 years, 2 lucrative commercials, and 1 hit album later, Michael Jackson paid $47.5 million to acquire ATV, which meant he owned the musical rights to the Beatles catalog and 4,000 other songs. This may have been the beginning of Michael's downfall, as that was the start of a long, twisted tale of the industry turning against one of the greatest stars ever to live on planet Earth. Okay guys, before I carry on with the video, I will admit a lot of what I'll be talking about today is heavily based on speculation. It's an opinion piece that may or may not be rooted in a theory a lot of people online have come to agree on. Now, with that out of the way, Justin Bieber. The kid that was 15 years old with a hit song, Baby, just last year. Now he's 30 with a baby. Justin Bieber is one of the highest selling artists of the 2010s with multiple singles and albums that have gone platinum. Also, for a very long period holding the #1 spot for the most disliked video on YouTube for a long time. I know at this point in the video I'll be trying to give you an overview of Justin Bieber's biography, but I think we're a little more or less familiar with how Justin Bieber became JB. This guy, while watching young kids on YouTube all night, decided to contact one of those kids for a meetup in order for him to offer a chance to run away with him. What the After some coaxing and pushing, Justin's mom eventually agreed to give this man autonomy over her son's life regarding his talent, skill, and ultimately fame. Initially you had one time, but then the big one, Baby, was released.
You know you love me, I know you care, just shout whenever.
It may seem like I'm being a bit biased against Scooter here. However, my satire isn't misplaced. If you guys are OG fans of the channel, you remember a video I almost did like 3 years ago titled Let's Sell Shane Eagles Mustards or something like that. I be changing titles more than Diddy changes his name. By the way, that Diddy video is coming. Back to Shane Eagles' video though. You remember I started the video off with a story about Scooter Braun buying Big Machine Records, which owned a huge amount of Taylor Swift's masters. If you don't know what masters are, I suggest you go back and watch this video. I don't have the time to spoon feed you right now because we're actually here. The beginning of the story. Scooter, after making a huge portfolio of music and music management, used these resources to buy Big Machine Records, then reselling the masters he acquired for almost $500 million. Remember, he's had tons of artists under him, including Bieber, Ariana, and Kanye at some point. Now, I'm not saying that he owned their masters, I'm just mentioning it to show you how money driven he is. The Big Machine deal, however, took Scooter from a millionaire to an almost billionaire with a big status. Keep that in mind as we move along. Okay, so Scooter. Yazin, that name sounds very weird for my Xhosa mouth. Instead of Scooter Baba, I'm gonna start calling the broer Velaphi. Makes sense, ne? Anyway, Velaphi decided it's time to get out of the business. Initially, he sold Taylor Swift's masters because they were causing him stress. Then slowly other masters. But finally, he made one of the biggest music deals for an individual. His company that owned the managing rights to multiple artists was a company called Ithaca holding. Look, I won't lie. When I look at this word, because of my black mind, it keeps looking like Itinga Nzomshaya. Velaphi was ready to let go of Itinga, and the company that bought it was a little known company on the other side of the world, all the way in Korea, called Hybe. Some of you may not know Hybe, but they have this very small, little known, very unknown group. I don't think you know them. These guys. Yeah, boy. So you must understand that the Korean K-pop market and the massive amount of money that they have are willing to spend on international music. Justin Bieber is like gold in Lehua land and Asian land. Worldwide, Justin is a massive star that almost all solo stars wanted to be like. Even Ariana Grande, she looks like what AI would have made if you typed in beautiful girl in the command line. Knowing how these apps work, you probably wouldn't even have to write the word white. Justin Bieber sold his masters in 2022. However, from 2021 onwards, Justin's music tours and merch would be handled by Hybe if Velaphi sold Itinga to them. How much do you think Hybe would be willing to pay for the right to manage, and dare I say it, own Justin Bieber? 10 million? 50 million? 100 million? 500 million? Turns out the deal was for $1 billion. So, remember that story I was telling you about Michael Jackson? He bought the publishing rights to thousands of songs. However, over the years, that couple thousands turned into millions of songs. Michael Jackson was on the track to becoming the first musician billionaire on the back of the publishing rights of all the songs he owned. Michael would see a huge decline in his musical sales for his subsequent releases while being pressured by the rest of the music industry to sell the ATV company. Back then, nobody cared about publishing or how it worked, so no matter how much Paul or his mates would cry about it, Michael was still killing shows and being the biggest artist in the world. Until 1991. Michael Jackson signed a deal for 6 albums, then was forced to sign another 5-album deal on Epic, which, hint hint, nudge nudge, is also owned by Sony. Basically forcing an out-of-prime 33-year-old Michael Jackson to record an impossible 10 Michael Jackson level successful albums. Mind you, these albums were released really quickly. One of the reasons Michael Jackson was the enigma that he was the time that he took in between albums, building them into these amazing pieces, which was understandable back then because equipment to make music then was much harder. Thriller was what it was because of how he built the image of the album and himself during that time. But once he signed that deal with Sony, he was being forced to release albums quickly. 1995, History was released with remixes of his older music and Blood on the Dance Floor with more remixes than actual songs. These albums focused more on the songs rather than a cohesive body of work. Now watch the finesse. The best way to get out a deal like this would be just to pay back the money they paid you to sign you, and sometimes a percentage of the money that they were expecting after signing you. This would be millions and millions that Michael would probably not have on hand. In fact, Prince, Michael's music arch enemy, went through the same thing. What he did was just soldier on and record really bad albums for the record label. He didn't care much about his legacy. He fulfilled his obligations, recorded the albums, and got out of his deal. Michael, however, was obsessed with his legacy. He hated the last 2 albums that Sony released, History and Blood on the Dance Floor. He didn't want to record any more music that would tarnish his musical reputation further. He had 2 other options. The first would be to get out of his deal, but you can bet your ass he didn't have the money on hand. It would mean he would have to sell his ATV company. He definitely did not want to do that, so Michael went for the other option, fighting against Sony.
And we want the artists to be free.
The story is usually the same though. You know, these guys work really hard at their craft, but the story ends the same.
Black artists have been taken advantage of completely.
Because the companies take advantage of them. At Sony, I've generated several $1 billion for Sony.
The record companies really, really do conspire against their artists.
They never thought that this performer, myself, would outthink them.
Sony, Tommy Mottola. He is a mean, he's a racist, And he's very, very, very devilish.
And Tommy Mottola is a devil.
Michael would go on a tirade, blasting Sony and its executives, including Tommy Mottola, releasing an album by the name of Invincible, alluding to his debacle. I have no proof of what I'm about to say next, and it's alleged if you believe all the Reddit cooks and the conspiracy addicts online. Sony fought back. 2003, Michael Jackson was booked on charges that were brought up almost 10 years before and that had already been settled. Michael, even after an embarrassing trial, still refused to sell ATV published. He would have rather gone on tour to pay off what he owed Sony. This was said to be Michael's last tour. However, it's been rumored that Michael hated the tour, staying up nights on end because he wanted so many changes to keep up the Michael Jackson standard for a tour. However, remember, Sony is trying to keep costs as low as possible, including only performing in one spot in London so they wouldn't have any travel fees, so that they can receive maximum profit. So I can imagine what was being whispered to AEG Live. Michael Jackson eventually died before the show went live. Guess what ATV publishing is called right now? I dare you. Just go look it up. Now, remember I told you about insurance? How tours are supposed to be covered in case things go sideways? Kanye West, master of the unexpected red, king of chaotic good, if you will. Back in 2016, his St. Pablo tour was cut short, partially thanks to a couple of unforgettable onstage moments.
Jay-Z, call me, bro. You still ain't called me. Hey, bro, Jay-Z, I know you got killers. Please don't send them out my head.
You would think an insurance company like the venerable Lloyd's of London would look at that and say, yep, that is an insurable event. Mans is clearly going through it. But no. Lloyd's tried to pull a fast one, hinting that Matekwane, among other things, was the reason to deny a $10 million claim. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm dropping millions on insurance, I expect for them to cover the unforeseen. And I mean, come on, a Kanye rant? That's about as unforeseen as it gets. But here's the kicker. Kanye sued them. And guess what? He won. Or at least they settled amicably, which in legal words means, yeah, we probably would have lost, so here's your money. So if Kanye, who was going on wild tangents, can get his insurance money, why the hell couldn't Justin? Let's circle back to Bieber. He gets this pseudory illness, Ramsey Hunt syndrome, which again looks like something spawned from El Satan's ass and has to cancel his tour. Common sense says he gets insurance. But no, instead, Velapi, aka Scooter, swoops in and loans Justin a cool $24 million. Alone. From a guy who, by this point, is nearing billionaire status thanks to deals like the Big Machine acquisition and the sale of Itinga.
And here's where it starts to get wicked.
There's no public record of AEG Live, the very same company responsible for Michael Jackson's tragic Never Realized final tour, by the way, suing Justin directly for that money. None. So why was a loan needed if the tour was supposedly insured? And now Velapi is reportedly demanding that Justin pay back this loan, effectively strong-arming him for the money that should have been covered by insurance in the first place. And then, as if on cue, around 2024, the whispers start. Did I just say whispers? Suddenly, after almost 5 years of marriage, Justin's wife, Hailey, is being painted as a stalker. Pictures and videos taken out of context are popping up everywhere, designed to make it look like Justin was back on drugs, or that his marriage was crumbling. Bro, look at this picture. Looks like he's a para, right? But then you look at the video and Justin looks fine. And if you're going to talk about the fact that he's drowning in his clothes, making a hint about his weight, Justin has always been wearing baggy clothes and sagging his pants. See why you can't trust paparazzi? Since when was TMZ a great news source, guys?
Get the fuck out.
Justin has been married for years. His Ramsey Hunt syndrome visibly impacted his face, and he cancelled the tour due to a legitimately terrifying illness. But now, all of a sudden, the media is attacking him in his relationship.
There's something wrong somewhere.
It feels like someone is doing this. Someone who's holding a substantial amount of financial leverage over him. Someone who needs him to be seen as problematic, struggling, and perhaps desperate enough to start working again. Because here's the real finesse. The grand plan. The why behind all of this. Velapi, Scooter Braun, is now the CEO of Hype America. He is not just a manager anymore. He's the head honcho of the American division of a multi-billion-dollar K-pop powerhouse that needs consistent flows of megastars to maintain its global dominance. And what better way to motivate an artist like Justin, who might be enjoying a much-needed break from the relentless grind, than by creating a financial bind, by lending him money that he should have been covered for, by allowing negative press to fester. You create a situation where the only way out, the only way to pay back that loan and escape the bad publicity, is to get back on that fucking stage, to record new music, to bring in those $1 million for Hype America. And Justin isn't the only one feeling the squeeze. You think it's a coincidence like Ariana Grande and Demi Lovato, who were once fiercely loyal to Scooter, are now reportedly not on good terms with him? It seems Velapi's playbook might be a little too familiar. The industry never really changes, does it? From Michael Jackson being pressured to sell ATV by Sony, to Justin Bieber being seemingly pushed back into the spotlight by the very people who helped him out of a medical crisis. It makes you wonder, who really owns these artists, and what price do they pay for their freedom?